being initiated into the service on page. What page was it? 772, 774? Where was it?
774 and 776.
Okay. So take a look at the command again on page 774. And the original command comes to Moshe Rabbeinu. V'daber Hashem al Moshe Lemor. It's like 6 lines from the bottom. Kach es ha-Leviim mitoch b'nei Yisrael. Take the Leviim from among the b'nei Yisrael. V'tiharto osam, you should purify them. Now, watch this. Daniel, up here. Watch, this is pretty neat. Take a look at the word Yisrael. Here's the word Yisrael. Yud, Shin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. Okay, now, we're going to spell out each letter. How do you spell Yud? Yud is spelled Yud, Vav, Daled. That's Yud. Shin is spelled Shin, Yud, Nun Sofis, right? What's the next one? Resh is Resh, Yud, Shin. That's how you spell the letter. We're spelling out the letters. Aleph is Aleph, Lamed, Pei Sofis. I don't even know. I forgot how to make a Pei Sofis in print. I forgot how to make one. And Aleph, and the last one is Lamed. Is Lamed, Mem, Daled. Okay, now, take a look at the middle letter here. The middle letter here. The middle letter here. Middle letter here. And the middle letter here. And you get Vav, Yud, Yud, Lamed, Mem. If you rearrange these letters, you get the word Lamed, Vav, Yud, Yud, Mem, which spells what? Leviim. So it's Kaches ha-Leviim, mitoch b'nei Yisrael, from within the b'nei Yisrael. Where is it? They're right in the middle of the b'nei Yisrael is Leviim. Cool. Mitoch, pretty cool, right? From mitoch b'nei Yisrael, Kaches ha-Leviim, mitoch b'nei Yisrael. From the middle of the b'nei Yisrael, you take the Leviim. And there's alluded to by the middle letters of the word Yisrael. If you rearrange those letters, you get Leviim. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. Yeah, I also noticed it during Torah reading last week, but I didn't want to say anything because that's why they call him. They call him the Vilna Gaon. They don't say the Vilna Kaplan. Yeah, there's a reason for it. So that's now. Yesterday we were speaking about what happens to the Leviim. So then it says v'chos sa'asa lahem l'taharam. That was all entertainment. Now let's go. V'chos sa'asa lahem l'taharam. This is what you should do to purify them. Hazeh alehem mechata, sprinkle holy water on them. Ve'viru sar al kol bisaram, they shave with a blade. V'chibsu bigdeim ve'itoron, they should wash their garments. Now, listen to this. This is pretty remarkable. The first idea of shaving the hair, they have to shave their whole body. Hair represents excess. Hair is an excess. The Leviim are going up into the service of God. They're going to be the ones in the base of Mikdash. They're going to be doing all the work. The first thing is they have to remove all the excesses. They have to separate themselves from any excesses in life. That means that there's a certain amount of self-control that's going to be required. What's interesting is that any part of their body, at least according to one opinion, the parts of the body, the private areas of the body, which are not visible, the armpits and the private areas of the body, that hair they do not remove. But all visible hair, arms, legs, face, eyelash, everything else is removed. That is symbolic of the idea that on the one hand you have to remove the excesses, but the basic needs you still have to maintain. You don't remove everything. That's what the symbolism is of not shaving everything. That means a person, even the highest level of kedusha among the Jewish people, there's no such thing as a vow of celibacy, and there's no such thing as a vow of abstinence like you have in other religions, because we're human beings, and human beings have to function as human beings with a basic need. There's no such thing as not eating. You don't have to go and put yourself on these strange, if you go out to some of these cults, some of these, not cults, but what are they called out in the East, where they go to, where you only eat rice for 6 months or something. There's no such thing. In Judaism, there has to be a basic balanced life. On the other hand, there has to be some sort of self-control and avoid the excesses, which are what the removal of the hair, what the hair removal symbolizes. Number one. Number two, the hair is for the body. The hair for the body is like it's almost like clothing. It's disposable. You could remove hair. It doesn't hurt to have a haircut. It's an amazing thing, even when little kids get their first what they call the chalaka, when they give them the haircut when they're 3 years old, right? What's it called? The upshearing. The upshearing, the chalak in Hebrew, they call it chalaka. In Yiddish, it's called the upshearing. And I remember my own son, I expected to see him putting up a fight or something like that. I've never seen a kid cry when they give him the haircut. My sons, my nephews, grandchildren, I've never seen them fight when they you'd expect the kid gets all spooked because if somebody's coming at him with a noisy machine, and it doesn't hurt. And they're good with it, They're especially since they get candy when it happens. But they're pretty good with it. So hair is almost like the body. Now let me tell you an interesting piece of Gemara over here. So there's one Gemara that says that the Amoraim, when they prepared for Shabbos, they would put on their work clothing. Because the Gemara says Amoraim used to cook, they used to chop wood. They were ready to prepare for Shabbos, they got into it. Because you should prepare for Shabbos. But the Gemara says that they changed, but they wore their work clothing for it. Why? Because the Gemara says that the garments that you cooked for your master, those aren't the garments that you wear when you come in to serve the master. You don't come in. The waiters don't come in wearing the stuff that they did when they did the cooking. They change when they're serving the meal. So the Levim are going into the Beis Hamikdash, and they're going to be now serving God in the Beis Hamikdash. Remove the old garments. Remove your old garments, symbolized by remove the hair. That hair was a part of you when you were involved in all sorts of mundane living. Now you're going up to a higher level, so put on new garments. In other words, grow new hair. Remove it. The hair symbolic itself symbolizes garments. But even more than that, I'll tell you a funny piece of Gemara over here. The Gemara says, and you'll have to tell me what this means, gentlemen. The Gemara says that Rav Huna, hey, there's our Rav Huna, right, from the Gemara. They're all over the place. There's Rav Huna. Rav Huna was the Gadol Ador in his generation. When Rav Huna would speak, would give a shir, he had 13 microphones. In those days they didn't have microphones. So how did you give a shir? And he had 1,200 talmidim. Now, how do you give a shir to 1,200 people with microphones back in the day where there were no microphones? So what they used to do is they had somebody who was called an Amora. Now, this isn't the Amora we understand it as Amora is what it is from their period. These were people who used to stand right by the rabbi. He would tell them the shir, the information, and they would go spread in the crowd and start yelling what the rabbi just said. They were the human microphones. These human microphones. So Rav Huna, when he gave a shir, megaphones, whoever, right, they serve human megaphones, right. Yeah, microphone. A microphone is to project your voice. So call it a what's the megaphone? The megaphone is that thing with the button. Oh, I love that. Or Samantha used to have one on the thing. You can push a button and it makes like a siren sound. Yeah, it's so annoying. And it's loud too. I wanted to get one for the house. You do a lot of stuff with a megaphone. So because you can carry it wherever you go. It's a good thing. So I have to find out how much they cost. Rav Huna had 13 human megaphones. That means he would tell them what he wants to teach, and then they would go and they would spread it to the crowd. Now listen to what the Gemara says. When the students got up from Rav Huna's shear, pay attention, they would shake out their garments, and the dust would go up and cover the sun. And in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Huna was in Babylonia, in Eretz Yisrael they would say, they just got up from Rav Huna's shear. Mimasifta de Rav Huna. They just finished shear by Rav Huna in Babylonia. Because the Talmidim from Rav Huna's shear would shake out their garments, and it would block, the dust from the garments would block the sun. And in Eretz Yisrael, they would say, they just finished shear by Rav Huna. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? They would shake out their garments. How do you like that? And in Eretz Yisrael, they saw it because it was blocking the sun. The dust was blocking the sun.
Their donkeys gave off a lot of smog, and it just filled the
It
atmosphere.
says their garments.
Which is the thing in Perkei Avos, when it says dust of the feet of the rabbis, is there any correlation to that?
And they follow in the dust of their feet. There could be a correlation. Yes, absolutely. There could be. In that context, it just means to follow them closely, but there could be a correlation. So what the commentaries say is garments represent our character traits, our midos. And the pasuk says, "B'chol eis dana." Maybe turn on the air. It's a little bit. There's zero air in here. It says, "B'chol eis yu begadecha levanim." Your garments should always be white. Your garments should always be white. Garments represent our midos. There's actually a Gemara that says there was a king who gave out clothing to his subjects. So the smart people took the clothing, they folded them up, and they just put them aside. And the foolish people put on the garments and they ran around getting them all messed up. And one day the king said, "Okay, bring back the garments." So the smart people brought back well-folded, pressed garments back to the king. The foolish people now had these filthy garments that they had, soiled, filthy garments. So they got punished and they got rewarded. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? That means that a person should always be in a state where we're ready to return our souls back to God. God could call people in at any time. And therefore a person should be refined and his character should be refined at all times. Not that, I got time to work on it till later, because the person never knows when that time's going to be. And therefore, Rav Huna's Talmidim shaking out their garments symbolically means that they had perfected their midos to such an extent that even in Eretz Yisrael they knew about it. They were shaking out the dust from their from their clothing. That means they're perfecting their midos. That's what the commentaries explain the Gemara means. So what does it mean that the Levim over here, they have to remove all of their hair? That refers to the excess. V'chibsu bigdeihem v'hitaharu, and they have to now cleanse their garments. That means it's not enough for the Levim to only remove excess. They have to work on their character traits too. You have to get self-control when it comes to desires. Desire has to get under control. You get yourself under control in physical desires. Plus, you have to make sure your character is refined. Your anger, your ego, your selfishness, all those things, the Levium now are being pushed to a new level. They're being pushed to a new level. Now this is, Tamid, you asked yesterday, why are they doing all of this? Why is all this initiated? Now you get an idea. We're moving into a new stage over here.
But aren't all Jews supposed to be doing this?
Aren't all Jews supposed to be doing this? This is a good yes. But some, what did George Orwellstein say? Right? Or what would he have said? All Jews are equal, but some are more equal than others. Right? Well, I'm a Kohen. We are not equal. We are not equal. I have certain privileges that you don't have. On the other hand, you have certain privileges that I don't have. But there is no equality in Judaism. Equality is a mistake. Equality, it says right from day one. There is no equality when God created the world. Everything was split. There's no equality in Judaism. There's differences, not equality. Men and women are not equal. They have different roles. It doesn't mean they're equal. The husband is the foreign minister. The wife is the minister of the interior. And there are rankings in Judaism. And you have a Kohen, you have a Levi, and a Yisrael. You can't get the second Aliyah. You can't get the first Aliyah. Well, you could if there's no Kohen in Shul. But if there's a Kohen in Shul, you cannot get the first Aliyah. It's not equal. No, it's not equal. If there's a Talmid Chacham and somebody who's not a Talmid Chacham, and there's only enough money in the local charity fund to support one family, the Talmid Chacham's family gets it. That's the rule. If a woman is a divorcee, she can't marry a Kohen. Not her fault. If she's a widow, she can't marry the Kohen Gadol. Not her fault. Her husband died. Maybe it wasn't her fault. But husband died. She can't marry the Kohen Gadol. It's not equal. It's not equal. Yeah.
But is a Levi supposed to, for example, work on his character traits more than a regular?
Oh, now let's take a look. I'm going to read you another Gemara. This is a Gemara at the end of Brachas. Now listen to what this Gemara says, because this is going to dispel. It'll probably surprise you a little bit. The Gemara says, Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, listen to this. Talmidei Chachamim have no rest neither in this world nor in the world to come. Now what does that mean? They don't have any rest in this world because they're busy learning Torah. They're always doing something. They're always trying to accomplish more. That's what, a person who's growing is constantly moving, trying to accomplish more. They don't have any rest in the world to come? I mean, honestly, guys, what do you think of when you think of the world to come? I think of a big, soft pillow, big Olympic mattress, and it's just, right? More or less like you feel after the Chont on Shabbos. And I bought a chair for my, like what do they call it? An easy chair, a lazy chair, what are they called? Lazy boy. Oh, looks like a lazy boy. When I bought it, I said to the guy, how far is the lean back? Will I be able to fall asleep after the Chont on Shabbos? That's the standard. That's how you decide if it's a good chair or not. So you have a chair. Say, what do you picture in the world to come? Hey, listen, we've been running around in this world, hassling, chasing buses, paying taxes. Hey, the world to come is we're supposed to be resting. We're supposed to be resting in the world to come. Just one big long And the Gemara says there's no rest in the world to come. Now what does that mean? There's no rest in the world to come. So it's roughly the equivalent of no rest for a kid who goes to an amusement park. When a kid goes to the amusement park, he's on one ride, and as soon as he gets off on one ride, he goes to the next ride, and it's a bigger and better ride. And then he gets to the supersonic dinner spinner. And after he gets off of that one, he goes on to some sort of, I've seen pictures of roller coasters, I'll tell you. I don't know if people enjoy that sort of thing. There are people who apparently do. And you're just going from one exciting thrill to another. So in the world to come, no rest means the person's going from one level to another. That's the good news. The good news is you're going from one level to another. One level of enjoyment. You ever been at one of these, I don't know what weddings in Israel, generally they serve Yerushalmi kugel and, if you're lucky, a piece of schnitzel. In America, if you've ever been to a banquet, a wedding in America, it's one course after another course after another, and the course is progressively better. That's if you've survived the shmorg. That's if you have room to breathe after you've been to the shmorg. But it's one thing, it's just one level to another level to another level. In the world to come, the reward for the righteous is you go from one level to another, and one level to another, where each level is at a mature level of understanding. Each level is a greater exposure of truth and understanding of God. And did you ever read a mystery novel where one of these whodunits, and then like an Agatha Christie, and finally you get to the last page, and all of a sudden they start explaining everything, and you just keep going, he didn't, it happens in movies all the time. right? That you don't know what's happening over here, and all of a sudden on that last, and they finally get to the last scene, and you find out he was a double agent, and she was really the murderer, and you're just like, oh, you mean, so he was really a bad guy, and that's what ultimately is this understanding of what deeper levels of understanding. However, what happens to a person here, that was the good news. There is an idea, which the Mefarshim say, that at each level, the person has now accessed a new level, a new height, and at that level, he is now, since he's at a higher level, his neshama's at a higher level, his behavior, which at a lower level may not have been considered a flaw, at a higher level, he may be taken to task for it. Because the higher you are, the greater the expectation.
Retroactively in life?
Well, not retroactively. Whatever you did in your life, in the world of truth, there's constant judgment.
Oh.
And he moves up from another level, and at the next level, let's take an example. In this world, I tell you, I've used this example before. What would your reaction be if you saw a guy from Ohr Somayach, you saw a guy from Derech, sitting in a shawarma shop, hammering down what do you call a laufa, stuffed with what do you call it, and eating a shawarma? What would your reaction be? Okay, at least it's kosher, and he made a bracha, and he might even bench. He's doing pretty good. What would you expect if it was Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva was sitting next to him, chowing down on a shawarma? What would you expect if you saw somebody who you see as a righteous tzaddik knocking down a shawarma? Then what would your reaction be? Like, something here is, at his level, I would have expected better. At his level, I'd expect better. In the world of truth, at each level, there's a more, as the neshama goes up, that shawarma, at one level, nobody says anything. At the next level, for you, at that level, inappropriate. The Levium are moving into a heightened level of responsibility. You're on a higher level, we expect better from you. Therefore, remove all of the past. Remove it all, because you're now stepping up into a new level. And we do this, by the way, we do this to ourselves. Because on one hand, we have to grow. But as soon as you put on a yarmulke, or as soon as you look like an Orthodox Jew, people expect more from you. And then you're held to a higher standard. You, me, us, we're held to a higher standard in the eyes of God. Because we ourselves have created a standard for ourselves. Now, we're going to get rewarded for that. Remember, there's a tremendous reward. Those who did not create the new standard will not share the reward. But as we create that standard for ourselves, we also create a level of responsibility. It's always like that in life. The CEO of the company, he gets a higher salary. But if something goes wrong, it's his fault. The manager of the team, you're getting paid more than the players sometimes. You're getting paid more than the players. The team is not going well, it's the manager's problem. Yeah, but they're not hitting. Yeah, but it's your problem. You're the manager. You're the guy who takes the responsibility. The Levium are now stepping up into higher level. Now you got a heightened level of responsibility. That's the idea. That's all the idea of shaving here. Now, you know what this is going to trigger off, by the way? Later on, how does Korach's rebellion begin? Korach rebelled against Moshe. You know where Korach rebelled that began? Korach's wife said to Korach, look what he did to you. Korach comes home after the initiation, and Korach walks in looking like a bowling ball. He's all shaven. It's all shaven bald. It looks like a monkey. Korach comes in. And his wife says, Moshe Rabbeinu's making fun of you. He's laughing at you. So Korach said, yeah, but he's mocking the whole bunch of you. So Korach said, yeah, but Moshe Rabbeinu did it himself also. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Levi. He also got shaved in this way. He was a Levi guy. He was a killing in this. So she said, Korach said to his wife, yeah, but he did it to himself too. He says, yeah, sure. That's Tamus Nafshi im Plishtim. That's what Shimshon said when he took down Sam, when he pushed down the pillars. He said to Hashem, let me die with the Plishtim. is when you play a practical joke on somebody, sometimes you have to include yourself, and otherwise, so the right that you have to take yourself down, you have to do it to yourself in order to get this guy do it to him. So he said, so Korach's wife said to him, sure, Moshe Rabbeinu did it because he wanted to make fun of you, so he did it to himself. When you do it to yourself, nobody laughs at you. Everybody knows you did it to yourself. That's what's going to be triggered off over here. Mrs. Korach triggers it off from this initiation over here. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of Rav Moshe Sternbach. Now take a look at Rashi on Pasuk Zayin for a second. Take a look at Rashi on Pasuk Zayin. It's still on 774. Left column is 7 lines from the top. 8 lines from the top. See where it says Ve'eviru Sa'ar. If you find it, please show the person next to you. On Pasuk Zayin, it's Pasuk Zayin. It's the left column on page 774. Left column, say 8 lines from the top. Page 774. Left column, Ve'eviru Sa'ar. Okay? So Rashi says, what does this mean that they should shave with this razor? Matzasi b'divrei Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan. Rashi says, I found in the words of Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan, was one of those who expounded in the Medrash. Lefi shenitnu kapora al habechoros. Why did the Levim have to shave? Because they were an atonement for the firstborns. She'avdu avodah zarah, who worshipped idols. V'hi kruya zivchei mesim. And idol worship is called the offerings to the dead. V'hamitzora korui meis. And a person who's got leprosy is referred to as being dead. He's kikam tiglachas kemitzoraim. So they have to shave, just like a person who had leprosy has to shave in his purification process. Why? Because they correspond to the firstborns. They're taking over for the firstborns. Firstborns worship, it's a pretty long chain that Rashi makes over here, that the Medrash makes over here. But they have to shave like mitzoraim. Okay. For a guy to shave, when everybody's doing it, so it may not be so bad. You go to the army, don't they give these guys crew cuts when they join it? When the recruits come into the army, they give them all crew cuts. Not so bad. Everybody's got a crew cut. A guy who's suffering from leprosy, from tsaras, and then had to be shaved bald, and he's the only guy. So it's embarrassing. There's a humiliation. So I saw Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, who's alive today, one of the Gedolei Ador. So Rav Sternbach said, you know why the Levim have to go through this? It's embarrassing. You know why they have to go through this? That's very much what you do what Shlomo said yesterday. Because they're Shevet welfare, right? They're the welfare tribe. And what's going to happen? Who are the Levim today? Who are the Levim today? Besides the literal Levim. Who are the people who are involved in taking the handouts, the welfare handouts, and the rabbis, well, those who do get paid, some don't even get that. But the rabbis, at least they're working and get a salary. Who are the real Levim today? The guys who learn in Kollel. The guys living a Kollel life, who are getting a stipend, which is barely enough to make it. If you knew how some of these guys live, how they count every single piece of chicken for Shabbos that they're going to give to their family, and every piece of they won't buy. For example, maybe they won't buy certain bread because the other bread is cheaper. They're living on a shoestring, and they're gladly doing it. They're gladly doing it, but they're the ones who get all the abuse, right? Yeah, you're a bunch of freeloaders. You're a bunch of what they call parasites. The Haredis are parasites. They just milk off of the government constantly. So says Rav Sternbach, that's why they have to go through this here. Get used to it, guys. Get used to it. This is what's going to happen to you.
Hazing process.
What's that?
The hazing
process. You may as well start now because it's going to be happening later. And you're going to be parasites, this, that. So we're all called in Israel, the Haredim are the parasites. We take money from the government. First of all, I pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, you go to jail. If you're in a tax category, you have to pay taxes. Everybody go to jail. It's not just that we decided we're not paying taxes. You can't decide not to pay taxes. So the Kollel guys are parasites, and they're milking off the government. Except that Rav Weinbach once said, the entire country is one big Kollel. Because the entire country is supported by the United States. It's the biggest coal. Israel's the biggest coal in the world. The milkers are laughing at the milk at other milkers. We're milking you. You're milking the United States. How much money are you taking from the United States? Arms, money, the loans. That whole country wouldn't exist. So the tongue in cheek. I think you may be saying it more tongue in cheek. At the end of the day, it's true. Then look at Pasuk Tes. Says Hashem to Moshe, "V'kravtes haLeviim al Omoid, bring the Leviim near to Omoid. V'hikalta es kol adas b'nei Yisrael, and gather all the people there." Because now we're going to have a strange a procedure over here, where the Leviim, the Jewish people, are now going to put their hands on the on the Leviim, and then Aaron's going to wave them. We'll see what that waving means. But the first thing that happens is the Leviim go to the Ohel Moed, and then come the Jewish people. Now, you ever been to a wedding? Who shows up to the wedding when there's a chuppah? Where there's a chuppah at the wedding? Who's at the chuppah first? What's that? The groom isn't the first guy there.
Rabbi?
No. No. First guy there is the photographer, that's for sure. The first guy there is the photographer and the musicians. And then the people assemble. And then the chassid comes out, whether willingly or dragged by people, but the chassid comes out. And then comes the kala. But the stars of the show always come on stage last. Is that true? You get the audience, and eventually they bring in the star. Then if you've ever been to any sort of performance, everybody's there, and then eventually the stars come out. Oh, who are the stars of the show here? The Leviim. When do they show up? First. Look what the command. V'hikalta is called. First it says, V'kravtas haLeviim if they all moed, bring the Leviim to the all moed. V'hikalta is kol adas b'nei Yisrael, then gather the Jewish people. Why? Why? The Leviim go out there first, then the Jewish people come for this ceremony, for the following ceremony. Why?
Go to the head.
Correct, 100%. Very good, Daniel. Let's keep it humble, boys. Yes, you're at a new level, but let's not let it go to your head over here. Go out there and you wait for the people. And symbolically, what does that really mean? Your job is going to be to serve the Jewish people. Jewish people don't serve you. You serve the Jewish people. Every rabbi of a community, sure, the rabbi sits up front on the pulpit and so on and so forth. The rabbi serves the community. His job is to serve a rabbi who thinks the community does serve him is not going to be a very successful rabbi. A rabbi, and Rabbi Akiva Eger, the great Rabbi Akiva Eger, had written on his I think it was on his tombstone. And where did he sign it? He signed his name, Eved La'ovdei Hashem, a servant to the servants of God. My job is to serve the Jewish people. That's what Rabbi Akiva said about himself. The Leviim, you're there to serve the people. Don't let it go to your head. You go there and wait for the people. Don't make the people wait for you. Do you know that there's a medrash that says, frightening medrash. The medrash says, remember we read on Yom Kippur, the 10 martyrs. We read it on Yom Kippur, the 10 martyrs who are executed, and Reuven, you can turn it off. I think you can turn it off though. We have enough cold air in here. You can turn off the air conditioning. Yeah, we have it's one of those modern ones, it's very efficient and it helps you make noise. Thank you very much. Thank you. The 10 martyrs who are executed, so the first two who go out there are Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is the Nasi, and Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol is the Kohen Gadol. So the Medrash says, they're executed first. And the Medrash says that when they were being taken out to be executed, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said to Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, if we have to die, we have to die. I come to terms to it. If that's what God, that's the decree, I'll die. I'm willing to die. I have no problem with that. I don't, but why? What did we ever do to deserve it? If it's like a decree, it's a decree, but I want to know, did I do something to deserve this? So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel once said back to Rabbi Shimon Kohen said to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, did it ever happen to you that somebody came to your door because they needed you, and you made them wait while you took a drink or while you put on your shoes? And he said, thank you, now I understand. I mean, who is he? He's the Nasi. He's the head of the Jewish people. Somebody came to your door, you made them wait because you needed a drink? You're there to serve the people. He said, thank you, now I understand. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, do you know that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was the Posek Hador? He poskin the hardest questions. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein had a phone by his seat in the Beis Medrash. Because people called him, Rabbi Moshe said, if they need somebody, they need me now. He wouldn't let his family put a sign on the door that said, with hours to come to the Posek. He had a lot of, some people poskim, some rabbanim, he actually have hours where you could come to ask your questions. Rabbi Moshe did not have hours. He said, if somebody has a question, they need me now. They don't need me later, they need me now. And a person takes on that responsibility for the community. You're serving the community. The community is not there to serve you, you're serving the community. So the Levium are waiting. Now look what's going to happen over here. V'hikrav, top of 776. V'hikravta es ha-Levim lifnei Hashem, v'samchu b'nei Yisrael es yadeim al-Levim. The Jewish people are going to put their hands on the heads of the Levium. When a person brought a korban to the Beis Hamikdash, when you brought a sacrifice, so one of the things that you did was called smicha. And you put your hands on the head of the korban and you confessed your sins. And when they put their hands on the head of the korban, they pressed down as hard as they could. You press with all your might on a korban. I mean, apparently, an ox is a pretty strong animal, could take it. A goat, a sheep, I guess you had to do it in such a way that you press. You pressed. I guess there must have been a limit of some sort. I don't know if it are they strong?
They're very strong.
Goats, sheep.
Their greatest muscles in their neck, pretty much.
So you can't. Could you push down a goat's neck if you try? Or a sheep?
They're ornery, so they'd fight back. But they'd be able to hold it.
They'd be able to hold it. So you press down. Well, you press down with the Gemara says you press down with as hard as you can. Now, what you're doing there is because it's a sacrifice, and you're transferring, so to speak, your misdeeds onto the head of this animal, which is now going to be shechted. The Jewish people. Now look what happens over here. The Jewish people, the Bnei Yisrael, put their hands on the heads of the Levium. Now, this is a problem because you got 600,000 Jews and 22,000 Levium. I mean, it's going to get crowded over there. How does that work exactly? There are opinions that was only a handful of representatives of the Jewish people who did this to the Levium. It's still 22,000 representatives. But there is an opinion that 600,000, which itself is a miracle, that 600,000 people could crowd together and push their head. But there's a bigger miracle. That's what the Jewish people do to the Levium. And then the next pasuk says, "V'henif Aaron es haLevim tenufa lifnei Hashem me'es b'nei Yisrael, v'hayu lavod es avodas Hashem." Aaron shall wave the Levium, and then they serve. Then they're ready for the service. Now, waving is like you wave a lulav. You pick it up, move it to the sides, you wave it. Now, how long, gentlemen, would it take to wave one man? He has to wave 22,000 people. And I always get a picture of 22,000 people. I always picture a stadium, a sports stadium. It's about the only place I've ever been where there are 22,000 people. The entire Madison Square Garden. No, we don't want to mention them. The entire Chicago Stadium, 20,000 people. Look around the stadium. You ever see, I remember going to a ball game. I remember, you see all the people in the stands. It didn't hit me how many people are there till the game ends. And as we leave the stadium and everybody's pouring out to get to the trade station, as we left Chicago, Wrigley Field, and everybody's pouring out, and you're just looking around like, wow, this is a lot of people. And that's only part of the people that were in the ballpark. Now, one man has to wave 22,000 people. How's he going to do? How long would that take you? Pick up one guy and wave him. How long? How are you going to do that? And you got to wave 22,000 people. It's all done in one day, in a couple of hours. So there are two approaches over here among the Mefarshim. There's one approach that he didn't physically pick them up. There is an approach that they just walked past them. That was called waving. But the standard approach is that he picked them up and he waved each person, which is obviously a miracle. None of these time-limited things that one person waves 22,000 people. You know how long that would take under normal circumstances? I mean, look at the lunchroom in Ohr Somayach, the lunch line, just to get your lunch at Ohr Somayach. You know, which itself is a miracle, right? But just moving the line moving. So, like, well, what's going on over there? So, what is the difference between that, what the Jewish people did, and our own waving them? What's the difference between the two motions?
Going up and going down.
One's going up and one's going down. That means, how did the Jewish people see the Levium? You're an atonement for us, right? You're our representatives. But in their heart of hearts, what are you thinking? Oh, these poor guys, a life of sacrifice. They don't own any land. They're gonna go, what do you call it? They're gonna live on handouts. It's essentially, the people view them as a sacrifice. You're gonna live a life of sacrifice. That's what's really how the Jewish people see them. How does Aaron the Kohen see them? You're elevated into the service of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. We're picking you up and you're waving you. You're being elevated into the service. And not only the Jewish people did it, who else did it? It's just interesting. It's just interesting that if you take a look, who else was involved in this transferring of the Levium? The firstborns themselves were doing it too. Remember, the firstborns are the ones who the Levium are replacing them. So the firstborns are taken, and the Levium now replace the firstborns in the service of the Bnei Israel. Okay, that's as far as the Levium. Now we're going to go on to the next. Oh, one more point, then we'll stop. Take a look at Pasuk Yud Tes. It's a little past the midpoint of the page. Slightly past the midpoint of the page. And we'll just summarize the whole thing over here. Ve'etna es ha-Leviim, do you see where that is? It's the last word on the line. Ve'etna es ha-Leviim, I shall give the Leviim nisunim la'Aaron u'levanov mitoch b'nei Israel. The Leviim are going to be given to Aaron and his sons, they're the Kohanim, from among the Bnei Israel. La'avodas avodas b'nei Israel, to do the service of the Bnei Israel, be'oel moed, ulechaper al b'nei Israel, and to atone for the Bnei Israel. V'lo yeh b'nei Israel negev, there will be no plague, begeshes b'nei Israel al HaKodesh, when the Bnei Israel approach the holy area, because they're off limits. Only Levim are going to do it. They're replacing Bnei Israel. Anything, gentlemen, jump out at you when you read this pasuk? Anything jump out at you? I'll read it again very fast, then we'll see if it jumps out at you. Ve'etna es ha-Levim nesunim la'Aaron mitoch b'nei Yisrael avodas b'nei Yisrael v'omei l'chaper al b'nei Yisrael v'lo yeh b'nei Yisrael negev begesh b'nei Yisrael al HaKodesh.
Says it 5 times?
Correct. That's a lot of repetition of the Bnei Yisrael. I mean, I knew who you were talking about once you said it once. Why does it repeat the Bnei Yisrael 5 times? Take a look at Rashi. And then we'll see what the lesson is. It's left column of Rashi, top line. Va'etna. Chamisha pe'amim nemar b'nei Yisrael b'mikra zeh. It says the Bnei Yisrael 5 times in this pasuk. Exactly what you said, Nathan. Lehodiach ibasan, to let you know how beloved the Bnei Yisrael are. Shenichpilu azkerosein b'mikra echad. They're mentioned repeatedly, kiminyan chamisha chemushei Torah. They're repeated 5 times, just like the 5 Chumash. You know, my reaction is, okay, the Jewish people are beloved. We know they're beloved. Why here? Why now? And what's it got to do with the Chamisha Chumshei Torah? Why here? Why now? And what's it got to do with the Chamisha Chumshei Torah? That's our question. What do you think? Why here and why now? The answer is, there's a whole lot of fuss being made about the Levium. Levium this, Levium that, Levium this, Levium that. And then why the previous part says Levium 9 times. Levium, Levium, Levium. The whole thing. Levium, Levium, Levium. It's all about the Levium. Levium, Levium, Levium. The Bnei Yisrael are mentioned 13 times in this section, by the way. 13 times. And the reason the Bnei Yisrael are mentioned 13 times is because when they sinned at the golden calf, they really should have been destroyed. But it was the Levium who showed devotion to Hashem, which then allowed Hashem to unleash the 13 midos, the 13 attributes of mercy, which saved the Jewish people. So the Bnei Yisrael are mentioned 13 times because it was the 13 attributes of mercy, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'chanon, which saved the Jewish people. That was in the merit of the Levium, because so there's a whole lot of fuss here being made about the Levium. Levium, Levium, Levium. Comes to the Torah, says, by the way, guys, don't think that you're written off. The Jewish people, Bnei Yisrael, are still beloved to God. 5 times, just like the 5 Chabishei Chumshei Torah. What does that mean? That means if you devote yourself to the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, you devote yourself to Torah, become a Torah scholar, you have even greater importance than the Levium. Because the Torah scholar is still at the top of the pyramid among the Jewish people. And so the Jewish people, Levium this, Kohanim this, Aaron this, so what's left for us? And where do we stand in all this? A, Hashem loves you. Hashem loves you. B, don't kvetch. Devote yourself to Torah, and you rise. You are also become a person of providence. That's what the Mefarshim explain. All right. Okay, TBC.